straight up out of my mouth. Don't say ice cream. Oh, man, especially with this hot weather. No, but I started working with Sheri almost 2 years ago. I had been investigating Common Core for about 6 or 7 months before I met Sheri. I'm a former retired first grade teacher with North Carolina. My husband and I moved down to Pickens on his grandparents' old homestead. It's been in the family since the Civil War, and that's where he wanted to retire. He worked for Duke Energy, and I was a teacher, first grade, in North Carolina. So when we retired, we moved down here. We've been down here for 10 years now. The last 3 years I taught was under No Child Left Behind, and I hated it. It was obvious where that was leading education. It was no longer teaching children, but teaching a test. And that's where we've really gone wrong. And as bad as No Child Left Behind was, when I heard about Common Core, I started looking and I was hopeful. You always have that little spark of hope that you think that something's going to be better. But I also knew that it was coming from the Obama administration, so I knew I had a little hesitancy there. But after I started investigating and looking into it, I could see that it was simply No Child Left Behind on steroids. And that's, a lot of people call it Obama Core, just like Obamacare. And it really is. That's exactly what it is. It's to education. It's like Obamacare in education. Anyway, when I met Sheri, I went to the first meeting. I found out that they were having an organizational meeting, and I was really excited because I really wanted to get on board with a lot of activists to try to stop this, because I love children. And I could see as a first grade teacher, when I studied the standards, especially the first grade standards, I could see that they were developmentally inappropriate. And in my mind, they're child abuse. They're requiring children to do things in the kindergarten, first, second, third grade level that they're not ready to do. It's requiring abstract thinking. Children at that age cannot think abstractly yet. They're concrete thinkers. So when you're trying to require a child to do something that they're incapable of doing, all that's going to accomplish is frustrating them and making them hate coming to school. So I was really just vehemently opposed to the standards. I then decided I needed to read straight through those standards, and so that's what I did. And with working with Sheri, I told her my thoughts as a teacher, as a former teacher. She was just phenomenal about organizing this grassroots group. Her group was called South Carolina Parents Involved in Education. And she is an organizer, and she knows who to put in charge, and she knows how to make things work, and she knows how to work with those legislators, as proven by this bill passing. Yesterday, Senator Larry Grooms has endorsed her, so that's huge. He was the one who sponsored the bill to get us out of Common Core, and now he has endorsed her as well. She has the tenacity. You know, a lot of people will want to just talk the talk and tell you, just like what she said, there are a lot of candidates out there saying they are opposed to Common Core. Well, I didn't hear anything from any of them over the past 2 years. Have you? Have you heard Mika Childs speak publicly that she doesn't like Common Core? Just recently. Have you heard Molly Spearman talk about how she hates Common Core? None of them have spoken about that. Just when they started. Sheri has been talking the talk, walking the walk, and I can't think of a better person to be in this position. She's the mother of 4 boys who all graduated, went to public school, and she's, like I said, she's got the tenacity. A lot of people will cower. A lot of people will buckle to the establishment and will just, cower down. Sheri is not that way. She is very outspoken. She will push, and she knows how to do it the right way. There's some people who try to reach across the aisle. Sheri is not one of those. When she's made up her mind about something, she's going to do it, and she's going to try every avenue to get it done. What our biggest fear is now is who is elected. As as you heard Sheri talk about the fact that now they are calling, this bill calls for a rewrite of those standards. Well, whoever is in charge, whoever we elect as superintendent, is going to be in charge of appointing those people who are going to be rewriting those standards. So it's very crucial that the person who is in charge understands Common Core. There is no other candidate that understands it better than Sheri. So my fear is if we elect, for instance, say Mika Childs, she has been under Dr. Zayas now. She is his protege. She was on the Education Oversight Committee who actually got us into the Common Core standards. There are a lot of things that she can say, and she's saying all the right things. And I know you guys know that there are a lot of candidates who will. They say the right rhetoric, and they make you think that they're going to just go in there and do whatever, because it's election time. So they're going to tell you what they think you want to hear. But the best evidence is to look at actions. Look at the history behind that person. Look, see if you can find out anything that Mika Childs has ever said publicly in the last 2 years before she started running. Look and see if there's anything anywhere that she has publicly said, I am against these standards. You won't find that. Dr. Zayas, yes, he said he was against Common Core standards, but he could have done more. We asked, as South Carolina Parents Involved in Education, we asked to meet with him. What we wanted him to do was to have forums around the counties in South Carolina where parents could hear both sides of this issue. And he wouldn't even meet with us. Now that says a lot. I went to the last meeting at the Senate, and the Senate was deciding whether or not to vote on this bill and pass it. Dr. Zayas wasn't even present at that meeting. He could have been. He could have gotten up and spoke to those legislators. He could have answered some questions that they had about the standards. He wasn't even there. There are so many things that a superintendent could do if they truly were against those standards that he did not do. So I want everybody in here to really look at the candidates, study, like I said, their actions, not just what they're saying, their rhetoric, but to look at their past, to look where they are. Molly Spearman, I don't know if any of you know about Molly Spearman, but she was a former Democrat. We've got enough of those rhinos running around. She was a former Democrat, so you need to understand that. Amy Cofield is a former teacher, but there again, like I said, where was she when it was come time to fight for these children that are being abused by these standards? Where was she? Was she in this fight? Did she contact our group? Did she have any articles or letters to the editor in the paper or any? You just need to look at the past, and look at what their actions are and what they've done. I encourage you to go to SheriFew.com and help Sheri. All candidates, they're all asking. They all got their hands out. But truly, even if it's just $10, $10 is a help. So if you can do that. I also have one huge 4x8 foot sign. I've placed 10, some in Greenville, there's one in Spartanburg, some in Pickens, that says Sheri Few, South Carolina Superintendent. It's a 4x8 sign. We don't have any in Oconee County. Nobody has stepped up to the plate and let me know. I've tried to reach out on Facebook and emails to some people to try to find me somebody who has some property here in Oconee in a good high visibility place that would be willing to put her sign up. Once you study her and you feel confident that you feel like she is the best candidate, I would love for you to get in contact with me, and we can get a sign up like that here in Oconee County. And I guess that's it. I'll just open the floor for questions. Anybody have a question? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the vouchers.
Right.
Common Core, I'm with you on that. I am not familiar with how the vouchers are currently being funded, whether it takes money out of the public school for that child and then lets them use it somewhere else, or how and if that's how how it's being done now. Does she want it that way, or does she want it funded another way?
She wants the money to follow the child and for it to be the parent's decision. The parent is the key. As a former teacher, I can tell you the only three things that are required for education are three stakeholders, and that is a child, a parent, and a teacher. And the child has to be a willing child. The parent has to be a supportive parent, and the teacher has to be a knowledgeable, loving, caring teacher. We've gotten so far away from those three major stakeholders that is what's wrong with our system. And Sheri believes that the parent should be the one who should choose where their child is getting educated. Yes, sir.
Tell us about homeschooling.
I would highly recommend it. And I'm a former public school teacher, but like I said, those last 3 years that I taught, I could see what was happening to teachers. You cannot blame the teachers, folks. They're being pressured. These teachers are scared for their job security. They're being told, this is what mandated, this is what you have to do in your classroom. So I fought it with everything I could, and I would tell parents in my conferences, that I don't like this. I don't like where this is leading. What it's leading to is teaching to a test. All you're doing is trying to train children how to take a test. That's not education. And that's what because the pay and your standards as far as a teacher, when you go in for your evaluation, your principal is looking at how your class scored on a test. A test. And it's just wrong. It's just wrong. Yes, sir.
My son grew up in North Carolina, okay? But according to the North Carolina rules, he shouldn't have passed any grade, okay, because he didn't pass the standardized.
Right.
Okay? But the teachers knew he was intelligent. He passed all his normal testing and everything else. Just that when it comes down to like a standardized test, he just freaks.
Exactly.
Okay? A lot of people.
Oh, yes, more than what we realize.
Oh, yeah, because I was the same way. Now, my son right now, he's in college, okay? Doing great, having a great time, okay? But according to the regulations, he shouldn't have got past the third grade because he didn't pass his test. Now, why do we have it? Don't know. Don't care.
That is an excellent question, exactly. We've gotten away from relying on a teacher's ability to recognize and to nurture her students and to see the individuality in each child. I can tell you as a former teacher, one size does not by any means fit at all. Each child is unique. God has given each child a certain ability, and as a teacher, you need to seek out what is best in that child. And you can't do that with one size fit all standards. You just
I
can't do
understand
it.
that, but there's also one other thing I want to let you know. I don't know if they do it here in South Carolina. But if they don't make it the first time, they try it again, try it again, try it again. Okay? Until they okay, you passed. Let it go.
Right.
I don't know if they do that here, but still, that's not the way they
Right.
just not.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yes, sir.
At the time Lyndon Johnson became president, he claimed it foreign property.
Right.
The United States had the finest public school system in the world.
And
My
that's-
wife and I were the public school system graduates, and I'm proud of that. And I always wanted us to have the best public school system we had. I don't know how or what it caused us to drift away from it, lots of reasons, lots of problems. But are we not, by moving into voucher system, furthering the destruction of our public school system and putting some disadvantaged students who may not have an interest at Parrott at a disadvantage, who might do better?
I don't think so. I think competition is good in everything. And especially, right now you already have some form of competition. You have some parents who know enough to know to move into the right school districts. They do that on purpose because they know and they look and they research. But but there are some people who cannot do that. They're stuck right there, and that's all they can do and they can only put their child in that public school your child's education. You want them to be flourishing. You don't want to have to send them to this school just because of where you live.
So basically, you're saying there's no way that will ever recover.
With the federal government in charge, I do not think so. And they are in it. And you know as well as I do how hard it would be. I mean, we can sit here and wish all we want to wish that the federal education department was, Ronald Reagan wanted to get rid of it. But it's there. And it is just, it's like cancer. It's just spreading and getting bigger and bigger. This Common Core standards, what I cannot understand is why Mike Huckabee, Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, all of these so-called Republicans are supporting national standards. Does that make any sense to any of them? None.
Because they haven't read it. They haven't
Exactly.
read it.
Exactly.
That's the only, I mean, they're lazy.
Right, right.
They do not read it. I worked in a very high-level job in the federal government, and I can tell you, I worked with the White House, I worked with senators and congressmen, and I could list a name a mile long of people that would vote for stupid stuff because they never read the details. The devil is in the details.
Well, I read all the way through, from K standards all the way through the 12th grade standards, and I dare to say there's probably not very many people in South Carolina who have done that. But I did. It took me 2 weeks, but I did. And the reason I read through all the standards was because I wanted to get a main idea. You know, when you read a book, there's a main idea. There's something that author is trying to get across. So the standards are no different. There's something there. So I read all the way through. Now, I can tell you, this is my observation. It's only my opinion. But my thought after I read through those standards is they are trying to teach children there are no absolute truths. That is exactly what these standards are designed to do. There are no absolute
They're
truths.
designed to indoctrinate.
Yeah, and that
we can
too.
see-
But
we
the
can see
big
that over the
idea is
last
no
30 or 40
absolutes.
years, the
Everything is
indoctrination.
arguable.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Are there any plans to proofread the literature that our students are given? Because what I'm seeing on the internet
Isn't it horrible? It's shocking, totally shocking. And that, now you have to understand, they'll tell you, the people who like Common Core standards will tell you, well, that's just an appendix. That's just a list of suggestions for the teachers to use. But you have to understand, the people who wrote those standards are the ones who suggested those books. Now, what does that tell you? Do you want people who suggest those books writing those standards? So you know there's got to be something wrong with it. But Sheri, like I said, Sheri is going to, if you've heard her on here, she's going to get a task force to look at all the current textbooks that are being used in South Carolina, to look and comb through them, to look for inaccuracies, for evidence of liberal bias. None of the other candidates are telling you that. Not one. She's the only one that's telling you that she's going to have a task force. And I'm telling you, I know I've been working with her for 2 years now. When she says it, she does it.
You know, you know how simple it is for me? When I've been here 14 years and I've gone into the public school system invited. I asked fifth grade students what I used to know in the fifth grade. They don't know 90% of it. They can't do math. They can't write a decent sentence. They don't know all the counties in the state. They don't know all the state capitals. They don't know nothing about geography. I mean, I can go on and on and on, and I'm saying, what are you guys learning? And then the school gets mad at me and doesn't invite me back.
They're learning how to take a test. I can tell you that's all it is. They're learning how to take a test. That's what's been wrong. That's what's going wrong. There's a lot of things that we could sit here and we could say that are wrong, that are leading, that is why our children are where they are right now. But a huge one is we have gotten away from classical education. We have gotten away from that.
Well,
And that's huge.
you have to believe.
The way we went to school and what we did, I mean, it's different, totally different now. And that's what's wrong with it. And that's what Sheri wants to do. She wants to return these standards, the classical standards that you and I mean, we put a man on the moon. You know? I mean, don't tell me we're done. We're not. But we have the federal government, and there's a lot of other factors that have been involved, but we have got to get back to where we were. A lot of times people say, oh, know, we need change, we need to move forward. I'm so sick of hearing that word, move forward. But sometimes you need to look back. You do. And this is one of those times that we do in South Carolina.
That man right there has a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't have a question. I just want to share with you. I have a daughter-in-law that's a high school math teacher,
Uh-huh.
and she's embarrassed. She has to give, if someone takes a test, they fail it, she has to give them another chance to take that test. And if they fail that, she has to give them an alternative test, and she loses her job if she gives them below 65. And
There's so much wrong.
she says she's embarrassed.
I guarantee she is. I guarantee, and we're losing good teachers because of that. I've said this, and I'll say it again. If these standards were in place when I was teaching, and I looked at them like I just got through telling you, and I read them, I would have quit. I would have pulled my children out and homeschooled. That's how bad Common Core standards are. I would have done that. I know I would have, because it's horrible. It's horrible. Yes, ma'am.
Well, she worked to stop the social promotions.
Yes.
in school.
Yes.
That is the
Yes.
most harmful thing
Yes.
to a child.
It is. Definitely. Definitely.
Is
Yes, ma'am.
State's running again? Is the incumbent coming back?
No, he announced, that's why there's so many in the race right now. He announced he was not returning. So, I think we were discussing that. I'm not sure. I was thinking there are 8. I mean, I know there's some Democrats, but I may be wrong. But, the main candidates right now that are really, you've got Gary Burgess, who is from Anderson County, Mika Childs, who, like I said, is Dr. Zayas' protege, Molly Spearman, Elizabeth Moffley.
Jordan.
I have a list.
Oh, good.
I have a list.
10, 11, 12.
12. Are they all Republicans?
No,
Okay.
that's Democrat and Republican.
Okay, I think there are 8 Republicans and the rest are Democrat, but I
And
could be wrong.
four Democrats.
Well, really, one of them that says she's a Republican is really a Democrat. Molly Spearman is really. Do your research. Don't trust me. Do your research. But she was a former Democrat. Yes, sir.
So let's get down to the nitty gritty, okay? I grew up in Massachusetts, and I went to a Catholic school up until I went into high school, okay? When I went into high school in a home government, let's say, sponsored high school, okay? Everybody that was in my class were absolutely idiots compared to me, and I was the worst in my class, okay?
That must have been a fun time.
Getting back to it, okay, that's way back in the 70s,
Right.
okay? Now, the idea is, it's been happening for quite some time, okay? Not just something that just happened, not just happened last decade or so.
It's been going on since the 60s.
The idea is, we as